As you travel down your own model railroading journey, over time you are going to find that there is equipment out there that you would like to have, or maybe need or want for your particular railroad time or locale, but it's just not going to be available. And it's maybe for a number of reasons. One, it may have never been manufactured before at all, or maybe not in your scale, or maybe was offered as a brass import years ago, but it's like one of 50, and chance of finding one is like like a needle in a haystack. Or maybe it was offered in the past, and it's out of production, or it's not in your road name, not in your scheme, as example, or it's a uncommon variation that only your railroad had. So in this video, we're going to explore 6 different avenues for creating custom equipment without a lot of effort. And these models we're showing today are not NMRA contest quality, scratch building projects, but they are good enough for your layout, for shows, for like things like a railway prototype modelers meet, where you're trying to achieve that overall look of a complete train or a complete railroad for your time period. So, however, while we're not doing contest quality models in this video, the techniques that we're going to kind of showing overviews of are things that are building blocks necessary if you want to be creating those custom quality, those contest quality models, in the future, or creating a more advanced project. So all of these models we're showing are all going to be examples that can be done to help inspire you for creating something for your model railroad. The first area are kits. Kits used to be the primary way how you got freight cars. And over the years, they became they have fallen out of favor. However, it is a good way of getting a lot of freight cars for little money today. Most you go to shows. A lot of times you can pick them up for $10 each. For like $50, you can have like half dozen cars, versus that could just be 1 or 2 cars a day. Examples of a brass. This is a brass stock car from Train Cat. Keeping note here, a lot of these manufactured, and some of them may be larger, like old Athearn blue box kits, for instance, in HO. But some of them, like Train Cat, are typically more of a cottage manufacturers, and these models are currently out of stock. A lot of cottage manufacturers, they come and go over time, relatively short runs. Can be a lot of them may just be your own fellow hobbyists, as example, not necessarily big manufacturing companies. Another example here might be wood kits. This is this Northern Pacific caboose. This was a Robert Ray kit, and he was just a hobbyist trying to fund his hobby. Other examples are resin kits, and this is a kit that is currently available. This is a express refrigerator car from fine scale models. Again, these are relatively simple. They have a resin underframe and a body, and there's some brass details to be added. But other than that, then you just assemble super glue together, add your own trucks and couplers. The decals are provided. Just paint it the appropriate colors, and there you go. Sometimes things can be relatively unique. So we have an example here of a Southern Pacific baggage mail car. This was offered by Wheels of Time. I bought these kits over 25 years ago. These were, again, similar resin parts, brass parts, and you're creating a unique model. And these models are unique in a sense that they have not been ever re-released. But if you're a Southern Pacific model, the Harriman cars with the distinctive Harriman underframes and the Harriman round roofs are something that you would need as a Southern Pacific modeler, for instance. The second area, it goes along with the first, with cottage manufacturers, and this is 3D printing, and this could be typically is a lot of small manufacturers and hobbyists that offer things for sale. Again, like the cottage manufacturers, we're looking at a lot of special runs, short runs, may only be advertised in forums or see at a show. So a lot of times you see these things, you're gonna, if you like it and you want it, just get it. You never know it wouldn't necessarily be available next time you go back to the same venue. So here's some examples. Here's an out of the box models, Southern Pacific B50-15. This was a manufacturer, was around for a short period of time. They really didn't last very long, so I picked this as a piece of closeout stock for like $5 each. It does have some issues or some muddiness, and it's not necessarily the best reproduction of the sides. However, it's a great stand-in, and I just took these and obviously added and painted and decaled these cars myself. Another example is that you can also do is that you can take a Microtrains diner car here, and then I found there was a hobbyist offering a 3D printed Harriman roof. So here you can take a stock car and just replace the roof to instantly change the look away from the typical clustoried roof cars that Microtrains offers. Another example of some complete kit that was offered was a Southern Pacific C40-3 caboose. This was again offered on Shapeways, and before Shapeways went under. But this is a car that I got painted, decaled. But I got this mainly so I didn't have to buy another brass model. I had this model in brass, but I didn't want to pay more than $100 a car at the time. It's a good way of potentially saving monies. Sometimes you find things that come up you only see. I ran at a hobby shop, a past show, and there was a hobbyist offering these 3D printed Boeing Skybox cars. He only was wanting $5 each. I still got to paint the flat car part of it, and added some trucks and couplers. But again, this is something really cheap model. It was easy to get without necessarily spending a lot of money or time. And again, these are going to go examples of models that you may just see at your show that somebody may be offering. I've never seen, again, they offered it once and haven't seen this. I've not seen these available again. Sometimes at the more recent show, I picked up a modeler was offering 3D printed wood chip car sides, and here then I've kind of talked about doing this in another video, but I just took these sides and cut out the sides of these commercial available wood chip car and added these sides to it to convert the car. And then adding some brass ladders. I'll be adding some brass ladders and grabs and steps, for instance, to finish this off. And then lastly, here's a body of shell print that I found on Maker World for my own 3D printer. This is actually pretty close to a certain class of Southern Pacific boxcars. So I printed it off, and I'm working on adding some brass detail parts. And this way, then, when this car eventually will be painted and decaled for the Southern Pacific. So again, you can find hobbyists and other people just having a 3D print file that is already available that you can just grab and print. The third area is backdating or forward dating cars with decals. I had picked this Burlington Northern wood chip car up at the one of my last train shows. It was decaled for a later era of BN. However, generally basic reporting marks and decals, and the number on the car was correct, but was missing the larger lettering and the shield. So I basically have done here, I've just took some microscale decals and added that name and the shield to the car, thus backdating this car to the early 70s instead of the mid 80s. Another thing you can do with cars is a number of the cars have different reporting marks and different major spotting elements on freight cars that you can either take a decal and add it, or potentially take some some paint remover and selectively remove it, or paint out and cover up, for instance. So one of these things are the ACI plates. I'm just going to lay the set from here on the car here. These were barcodes that were added on freight cars. They were started required in 1967 and then lasted in service through about 77. So any freight car between 67 and 77 that was originally built would have one of these barcodes on them. However, of course, cars later than once you pass 1977, you would still find these barcodes in different states of and weathering and wear over time. So that's a good way to potentially modify cars to indicate the period. So something in the early 1970s, you would have these ACI plates added. Another thing is for instance, the consolidated stencils. These were started in 1972. So and there were many cars out there. These were added to later. Even though the car may not have a roof lock and things like that, or maybe had a roof lock. Sometimes if the indication of these consolidated stencils equals something beyond 1972, but if they didn't have it, maybe this car is appropriate for, say, like 1968. Another area is the U1 wheel dots. This was a cars of certain vintage that were built between like 64 and 69. Had these were done with these cast wheels, these cast U1 wheels that found that they could fracture under heat and load, causing there were a number of severe derailments with these. And then with the 1974, they were required that all freight cars with these wheels, these 70-ton wheels, had to be added. So this car has a yellow dot, meaning that it doesn't have these wheels anymore. Cars with white dots indicated they have those wheels, and the white dot cars were eventually all banned from interchange service starting in 1980. So depending on the car, you can actually change have the absence or presence or absence of these. Again, indicates a certain period. Lastly, we have, and like this flat car, we have the conspicuity stripes. You can see these kind of yellow stripes on the cars. These were added in, say, 2005. So in this case, this model here, I believe, wanted a Canadian Pacific bulkhead flat. It's actually appropriate for my period, except for these stripes. So I plan to do is take out or paint over these stripes, thus needing to backdate the car. So you can do this. Or if you wanted a model, you had this car, but you wanted to model your 2010 or so, then you would need to add those conspicuous stripes, for example. The fourth area is just repainting and redecaling. Sometimes if you need a certain road name and it's not available, instead of trying, or maybe you don't have it and you need it, sometimes it's easier to just take surplus equipment that you were going to sell off and then maybe strip it and then repaint it and redecal it for the road or road name or era or scheme that you need. So here's the top example. Here is a maintenance away bunk car for Southern Pacific. This is just a 12-1 heavyweight sleeping car that was just we just painted, instead of the olive green and the black, with the car body was painted SP brown and a silver roof, and just decaled with the Southern Pacific maintenance away decals. This is a simple example of creating a maintenance away car in a scheme that's not available. And down here is just a Microtrains 50-foot boxcar shell. There was a road name that I couldn't use, and it was been stripped and now been repainted and preparation and gloss coated in the preparation for decaling and conversion into a Southern Pacific boxcar. The fourth area, what I would call relatively simple modifications. For the first example is a Southern Pacific maintenance away boxcar. This is where I took out the doors, added some scribed car siding, added some braces to fill in the doors, and then cut into the side of the car a door and a window with a commercial window casting. I also did the same by adding some doors, on the end of the car as well as per prototype. And I was just following prototype pictures, or more or less using the same car class as my model, and I kind of followed along and made some approximations. The second model here is a car in progress, where I've taken a Microtrains 40-foot boxcar. Again, it's one of these surplus cars that I had, and I modified replaced the door, the 6-foot door with a 10-foot door, and lengthened the door tracks. This is sends to represent a modernized 40-foot car that the Southern Pacific had. So here's an example where all I'm doing is changing the door out, adding the door tracks. Very, very small modifications, but this creates a car that is not available in scale. Sixth and the last area are generally what I would consider these to be the kit bashes. Again, a bit more advanced, a little bit beyond what I would call a simple modification. So, example, the first one here is a Southern Pacific hog fuel car. This is an early wood chip car of the early 1950s, where the current large wood chip cars were not there, so they converted these cars to the new idea of hauling wood chips by taking old box cars, cutting the roof off, adding some bracing, and adding some doors in the sides that had to be, and that allow the cars to generally somewhat dump out, though they did require some manual shoveling to get them all the wood chips out. But this is going to I did what the prototype done. I ended up cutting off the roof, adding some braces on top, and then scribing and adding some more styrene to represent the plugged in door, and then the smaller unloading doors in the side of the car. Again, everything here was generally painted with the appropriate SP brown, and then some SP freight car decals from Microscale. Another one was a conversion of creating a Southern Pacific 12,500 gallon tank cars. These are a bit different. These are much larger than your Intermountain and the Microtrains cars. And these were actually done by, I basically took the train set quality Model Power or Bachmann 3-dome tank cars, cut out and removed all of the domes, plugged them, filled them from the bottom, filled them in with putty, sanded it down to a smooth, and then added Intermountain dome car parts to dome parts to get the appropriate size dome. And then a lot of the frames and parts were reused from the original cars. Again, this creates a prototype that is not available in scale, for instance. At the same time with those other tank cars, I used some of the parts that I had left over from the Intermountain and created this Southern Pacific water car that I saw on prototypes, where I took some of the Intermountain dome car Intermountain tank cars, shortened them, cut them to fit along with the frame, and added a wooden stripwood platform on top. And this creates a water car that the original prototype was built in 1906 or so, and then modified later in the 50s for a water car service. So this is something that you could easily do, and it's one advantage of maintenance away cars. A lot of them you can just simply repaint them and add new decals, or you might do some modifications such as this They were pretty much all home built. Not one was the same from they were all different. So you create a custom set of equipment without creating something that somebody else has.